Okay.
Maybe you can start if you have something to introduce yourself.
Yeah, I actually would like to know from you guys how many of you have already used Unity before? No. No, just to get to know how many of you have used Unity before? Okay, okay, that's good. If there's something that I'll try to not already think that you know the what anyway. So I'm going to talk about using Unity with Haxe. Actually, that was what I don't know if you know me, but I'm the developer of C# and Java targets. And thanks. No, you're so kind. You're so kind. And when I started with that, it was actually to be able to use Unity with Haxe. At the time, we were doing a lot of 3D games there, and I already had some experience with Haxe because of Flash. I first started with 3D in Flash using Haxe. And I was really looking forward to be able to use Haxe with Unity. And that's what, then I thought, okay, C# is pretty close to Java, so why not make 2 targets? And, and then I spent like 1 year really working hard to get it done. Anyway, I think that we finally got to a moment that it is possible, very possible to work with Unity, and that's what I'm going to show you. Okay, so why Unity? I don't think Unity is, I don't think I have to sell Unity too much because yeah, it's right now it's like the most popular engine, 3D engine, and even for 2D games. You can compile to Xbox, I think Xbox, PS3. You have a lot of consoles that you can compile. There's the web-based plugin also to web. It has really a great editor. I think most of the success it had, it's because it's got a great editor. You can, I'll show you guys later, but you can put gaming information and visualize how the game is coming up. Yeah, and I think one of the biggest things for us as Haxe to look at Unity, it's because I think it's one of the greatest qualities of Haxe, is that we don't have to fight a platform. You know, it's not like Haxe versus Unity. It's more like Haxe and Unity and NME and everything. It's you add that power that you can be able to even think of compiling from Haxe to Unity, like from NME to Unity, or something, some crazy thing like that. It enables us, and that's. So, and I also don't think I have to sell Haxe to you guys. But, well, first thing is when you're coming from Unity and looking at hacks, I will show you, you will have very little change in the workflow. And especially if you're using Unity script, which they call JavaScript. Yeah, it's not really JavaScript. It's like an AS3 kind of thing. It doesn't have too much IDE and tooling support. So it's not like what, for example, Todd talked about the IDE and a little resistance. Anyway, and that Unity as a target, as I said, it could allow some pretty interesting things, I think, especially if you think that support for 2D and GUI in Unity is not too good. They recently made the 2D extension for Unity, which is very nice, has some support for animations, but when you are trying to do GUI, for example, it still lacks a lot, and it actually, it's worse than Flash, or than the Flash workflow, I think, personally. And yeah, we have an awesome open source community, and then I think that's something that they can use. For example, they have the asset store, which is kind of a separate place where you can buy either assets or lines of code or libraries. So everything is mostly for sale, you know. For example, they have like a Swift import library. I think it costs like $100, and they could get ours that I think works better for free. So yeah, and contribute and improve it. And one thing that I really think it's a good point for using hacks always is that your code base doesn't depend on one vendor, which is what we experienced with Adobe. So I think that this is always a good thing to be able to be future-proof. And networking, actually, this is very cool. What we can do with hacks. I know that some people are already using hacks for Unity to develop games, and the most reasons they are using right now, it's for networking. Because if you want to, you have to run your game logic on the server as well, so you can know if one person is cheating or not. And if you'd have to replicate all your code to the server side, if you're not using C# for the server side, which isn't very good, for the server side, I mean. So this is a big thing, networking. You can share code base and call functions like send objects. I don't know if you've ever used hacks remoting, but it's pretty cool what you can do. You can call remotely, send objects, and it works very nicely. And yeah, you know that we have a great language. Yeah, and this is the too long, don't read the version. So let's get started. The guys at Proletariat Games, they did this library called Hugs. And wow, it was really intense work they did, because they did all the externs. They actually auto-generated them, but they are using that for their game. So they had to adapt and create some ways, because there wasn't a good way at the moment to work on some issues, like how do you access operator overloading from from C# and things like that. And yeah, that's how it was. And now it's basically that. Yeah, so this is possible because of Netlib. We added Netlib in Haxe 3.1, and it works like JavaLib and SwiftLib. I don't know if you have, you must know SwiftLib, and JavaLib is the same thing for Java, so you can use Java libraries directly from Haxe, and it wasn't very divulged, you know, but I think it's an awesome feature. So you don't have to create externs, and that's what I wanted to be able. It's to do anything you can do with pure C# code with Haxe. So right now you can do properties, events, delegates. You can overread overloaded functions and implement interfaces that use overloads and call overloaded functions. So this is how it all those features look like. So you have like @meta. This is how you use the C# attributes. And all functions that you are using with C# code are overloaded, so you have to include that @:overload. And the first example here is how you would overread a getter. And the same thing with, for example, this call delegate is actually, this is, I don't know if you're familiar with C#. C# has anonymous functions like Haxe, but they are typed differently, and you don't have like the type function we have that can, so they are of a specific type, and you can't cast between them, even if they are, even if they have similar types. So even if they are of the exact types of functions, you can't cast. Yeah, it's anyway. Here I showed two examples of action and func. Action is like a void for us, and func is like void something. Anyway, the generic part disappeared in HTML. I forgot about that. But anyway, you can use pointers too, like in C# using unsafe code. And well, there's still something to do, especially test all this, but they will be there. They are there right now. And so okay, here is a simple example of how Unity, a simple Unity object would look like. So in Unity, you normally want to extend mono behavior, which is the sprite class in Flash, or the main class that of components. So you have objects, and you can put components in. So this is how it would look like. So everything that is public in Unity becomes a property in the IDE. So for example, string prop becomes a property here, and you can edit it and set its value. And the same thing with arrays and vectors. So this is just an example of how the code would look like. This function update, it gets called every frame. So, and now you also have error positions. So it shows the errors in hex code, in the hex code, not the compiled one. You can access the compiled one with a flag, but the default is to show the hex one. And then I've added, a few days ago, the Unity STD target. This is defined you use, which allows you to set, to generate the files like you would like in Unity, which is if you have like an X file, it will generate the C# file relative to the X file, not in the separate directory. That's important for Unity because the structure and where the files are very important to determine what can be done. Okay, just some equivalence between what's a native array, which is the fixed size array, would look like in X, in C#, and basically how they relate, how you would change between one or another. And some code that shows also this equivalence. So for example, this kind of construct here, it's you are adding a delegate to itself. It's like you have a function, and functions in C#, they can be multicast. They can call many functions. So you can add between their functions. So you can do that with Hex too, only for C# delegates, I mean. And you can call generic functions, and from either setting the type or using this kind of cast construct that infers the type. So get component, some component here. Oops. This part would read something like that. Anyway, and now the part which this is the basic, you know, and I'm going to show you some things I've been working with. It's really not ready, but it can show you really how you can do cool things, and I think the sky's the limit with Hex. So, okay. So this is really a work in progress. So I have a couple of warnings about that. It's just something I put up for this presentation actually, but it's looking very nicely. Okay, that's the address. You would have to use hexlib with dev, hexlib dev, this path. And then you just have to go into your Unity project and go hexlib run unix, yeah, unix. That's how I try to. Unix init, and then the path. And it goes something like this. Okay, this is Unity. I'm on an empty project. Let me. Okay. Okay. So now it seems like nothing's changed, but if you create a Hex script, no, back. and save it. It will already compile it, and you can, if I can work out the mouse thing here, and you can just click and drag, and it behaves exactly like a C# or Unity script. You can add it just by clicking and dragging, and if you add properties to here, you need to save it. It will already update here. And all these values will set in the object. So and yeah, one thing I forgot is that you get this Haxe properties tab, which you can force recompile. You can add your own parameters, and you can use the compilation server. So yeah, the C, it will also have to compile the C#, so it's still not faster than Unity, but we'll get there. Okay, so yeah, you can drag and drop. Yeah, I did some work too. If you look at the console, there are some warnings. It shouldn't. That's another thing I'll talk about. But almost all warnings that are normally on the generated code aren't there. And one thing that is also really cool is that you can mix pure C# code with Haxe. And this is actually something that you can't do even with Unity script and C#. You can't really have like one class made in C# and one class made in Unity script and cross-reference between them. And in Haxe, so if I, for example, create, oops. I'm struggling here with the mouse pad. Okay. Yeah. So you have this new behavior script here. You can, you can actually reference our test. Class, it compiles. And you can also I hope I didn't write it wrong. Yeah. And it compiles it as well. So, and yeah, this is something I haven't actually done it yet, but I will do, which is to add vector and quaternion operator overloading, so you can work just like in Unity. And then I made some API overrides also, just for just to be able to use trace and trace in the right place. And then there is the Haxe behavior class. I think I lost one. I made those. Oh yeah, here. This class will generate right now this code in C#. The real, if you have seen the C# generated code, you'll say, what? Because it's not like that when you look at it. But if you add the native gen, metadata, it treats the class like it was native, and it doesn't generate any reflection helpers at all. So you get really neat lean code like that. And what Haxe behavior does is that it automatically sets native gen. So you won't get those warnings you saw when I compiled to mono behavior. So if I just change here to hex behavior, okay, you don't get any warnings anymore for the. And if you look at the hx compiled test, it's really that small of code generated. It's ugly still. I will work on that, but it's small now. One other thing I wanted to show you guys is that I've been working with is the macros I added to hex behavior to complement the editor in Unity. So for example, if you write a comment before a variable, a public variable, it will show up in the tooltip, just like we do on MCLI, which is a library for CLI command line interfaces. You can also set extra properties. For example, @label would set the label and things like that. You can have many custom controls with that. So you can, for example, and this you can't do with you can do with C#, but it's just a whole bunch of code that no one, it's really hard to do it. It's like you have to generate a class that will tell how the editor will show these fields. It's really complicated. So in Hex, it's just like, just write the code, you know? So yeah, so here you have a slider that I put the 0 and 100 for minimum and maximum. You can have passwords. You can have a lot of different types. I don't know all of them, and it won't be easy to show. You also have this will probably change. So it's one of those things you won't. It's better not to rely on right now, but you can right now add a button also to the editor, and then you can set a function, a handler function, and it will call it. So at editor time, you can have a button and call some function inside your class. Yeah. Is that kind of clear to you guys? Yeah, sorry. What? Yeah. It's macros with macros, running inside of macros. And it's not perfect yet, but I've added also some, it's not actually 100% working, but I added also support for our hex types. So if you create an enum, you can and add it as a public variable to your hex behavior class. It will already generate a selector, and if you select one of the options, you can set the values of the fields inside. I've also added for anonymous objects, and for the roadmap for C#, I will in the future. I'm looking in the future to really make that it is possible to write everything you want in C# in Hex and make it work good and nicely. And after that, we will be able to, I will work to be able to compile directly to assembly. So you won't have to compile to C# and then from C# to assembly, and it will be like tons of times faster. And that's the future plans. And as you saw, the Unity3D library is very small right now, and but I think it has lots of potential, and I think that Unity is a really big market and a really big, I can see them as partners, a big partner that we can, and I think that if I don't have too much time to work on Unity3D, and so it would be great if people want to join in and test and submit ideas and bugs and collaborate with code. Everything there is still very, very rushed, but I think that I can see right now that even this Rush version is like as smooth as working with Unity script or C# in Unity. So I'm really looking forward to. Yeah, that's it.
Super cool, nice to see. I have a question about the C# target and the DLL just pull in and run thing. Mm-hmm. Will this make it possible to use all the C# infrastructure, for example, for creating desktop applications and things like that?
Yes.
Is it ready to run?
Yeah.
Great.
How much overhead, or what kind maybe of overhead do you get when you write Xcode against C# code? I mean, in which kind of situation you get overhead actually?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question actually. It depends on where are you compiling to. For example, the Monos AOT compiler doesn't work very well with generics, and since actually it's not exactly generics but generic functions, and because of internal implementation detail about how we deal with, for example, casting between dynamic arrays, or you create a dynamic array and then you cast it to an array of ints. If you work with hex arrays or other hex types like that, or if you want serialization on your generic fields, which is on by default, it gets some overhead. I've heard it actually from the guys at Proletariat. I didn't try it myself, but I'm trying to figure out a solution for that. But if you write and use the native types of C#, like native array, and if you try to write like you would C# or use native gen at colon native gen, the performance would be the same, exactly the same.
In some near future, do you think it will be possible to write a Unity game without opening the editor?
Without opening?
The Unity editor?
Without opening the editor? Yeah. But I think the editor is the best part for Unity. But what do you mean with that? You mean, for example, if you have like an Axe game that already works and targets to Unity?
Just imagine I coded a game in OpenFL and I developed it for mobile phones, and I say, okay, now I want to switch to Unity because they added GS or some exotic platform.
Oh,
just
I see.
hop.
Well, Unity has you can have, if you have the Unity Pro, they have the GL class, which allows some OpenGL calls. It's very, very limited. Someone on OpenFL or NME would need to have a look and see if it certainly can be done in some way, but we need to figure out a good way to do it. Not, but yeah, it's totally possible. It's I can see it happening, and I hope it happens. Okay, so I guess that's it. Thank you.